So originally I was just gonna do some kind of silly video for April Fools, but I gave it a bit of thought and I figured I'd just use it as an excuse to talk about a game that I usually wouldn't touch at all. Today we're gonna take a look at the objective best game of all time, Insaniquarium Deluxe, and we're gonna be talking about some of the unlockable pets in the game, and why some of them aren't really that great. Now, Insaniquarium Deluxe isn't a game I would expect a huge amount of my audience to be familiar with, so before we talk about the pets, let's just talk about what the game is about and how you progress. In Insaniquarium Deluxe, you have fish. You can buy more fish, but to buy more fish, you have to take care of your fish, feed them, and get the money they drop. You can use the money they drop to buy food upgrades, the ability to drop more food, upgrade your gun, buy more fish, and most importantly, buy 3 egg pieces. Buying all 3 of them ends the level and unlocks a new pet. Also, yes, I did say upgrade your gun, because this game has aliens, and they will occasionally attack your tank and try to eat or kill your fish. If all of your fish die, then you lose the level. There are 4 different tanks, each with 5 levels, and each of them feature different optimal ways of making enough money to buy the 3 egg pieces, and different aliens and such. Now, what I want to talk about today are the 24 unique pets that you can unlock in Insaniquarium. You unlock 20 of them just for playing through the game's adventure mode, and 4 of them are considered bonus pets that you purchase with shells. Pets function differently from fish in that they can't die, and you don't get them in the actual level. Instead of buying them in the level or starting each level with them, you pick 3 or 4 before you go into each level. They're kind of like supports, and each of them have their own unique abilities that help you out during each level, such as fighting off aliens, collecting money that you've missed, or making you money. Now, there's no getting around the fact that some pets are just better than others, but to be completely honest, it's really hard to pinpoint exactly how good each pet is, because there's just so many different ways to approach the game that, for the most part, the vast majority of them have, some kind of place that they can shine. For example, some pets are not all that great in a casual setting, but they might have some kind of niche when it comes to speedrunning. Some of them aren't great in the game's adventure mode or bonus adventure, but they can potentially shine in challenge mode or time trials. There's also the issue of Presto. You unlock Presto for beating the final boss, and they are by a mile the best pet in the game. Their ability is that every 10 seconds they can transform into any of your other pets that you have unlocked of your choice. This automatically makes them the most versatile pet in the game, but it kind of makes a lot of other pets redundant in a way. For example, there are 4 pets in the game that help you attack aliens, and that's nice, but it means that if there isn't an alien attacking, they don't actually do anything. And because of this, they're kind of made redundant by Presto, because you can have Presto be some other pet, and then when an alien attacking is coming, you can just transform Presto into one of those 4 pets to help you take it down, and then transform it back again. Another factor in how good the pets are is whether it's your first adventure mode playthrough or not. You unlock the pets by playing adventure mode, you get one after beating each level, but that means that early on you won't have access to that many pets. For example, Shrapnel is probably the best money-making pet in the game, and then I'd probably consider Nico the second best. However, if it's your first playthrough of adventure mode, you get Nico after the 2nd level and Shrapnel after the 12th, so you might as well use Nico. Nico's gonna have, some time to shine at least until you get Shrapnel. I guess what I'm trying to say is that take all of this with a big grain of salt. There are very, very few pets in this game that I would call outright useless, and even then, it's kind of debatable. Honestly, I just want an excuse to talk about this sick as fuck game. To start off, we're going to talk about the first pet that you unlock in Insaniquarium, and that's Stinky. Stinky, being the first pet you get, is very, very simple. He just goes back and forth at the bottom of your tank and collects any coins or treasure that you might have missed. I'm going to lump Clyde in here too, because Clyde is very similar, except that Clyde can go anywhere in the tank. He's not locked to the bottom like Stinky is. So I guess Clyde is somewhat better, but at the same time, Clyde pisses me the fuck off because he's the only pet in the game with no black outline, and it looks really fucking weird and I hate it. Anyways, neither of these 2 guys are that great. Missing money is usually not much of an issue. Like, if you're in a situation where there's too much money on screen that you're having trouble clicking all of it, and listen, I've been there. Finger. No. You've probably got the game in the bag. And listen, I understand that these two might be useful for casual players because clicking so much stuff at once is kind of annoying, but if that's the case, you'd be better off with Seymour. Seymour's ability is that he slows the fall of money in the tank, which gives you more time to click on it. I think Seymour, even though he's not great for speedruns or anything like that, is one of the better pets for casual play in the game. Just giving you more time to click on stuff just makes the game less stressful, and I really like using Seymour personally, even if he's not that great overall. To be fair though, you get Stinky and Clyde before you get Seymour, so I wouldn't call them completely useless. Now, pets that are usually more valuable than pets that help you collect money are the pets that actively make you money. There are three primary pets that directly make the player money: Shrapnel, Nico, and Vert. Out of the three, Shrapnel is definitely the best, but I wouldn't call the other two bad necessarily. Vert drops gold coins worth $35 every 6 seconds, and Nico gives you a pearl every 40 seconds worth 250, with the exception of the first that you get after 34 seconds. I don't know if I'd say one is much worse than the other. Sometimes getting small increments of money a bit at a time is worth it, and sometimes you'd rather just have the higher amount of money that Nico gives you. Unfortunately, they are outclassed by Shrapnel, and that's because Shrapnel makes over 8 a second, giving you bombs every 18 seconds that are worth 150 each. The only downside to Shrapnel is that if the bombs he drops makes contact with a fish, the fish dies. However, this is really just a non-issue because he flashes white before dropping a bomb, so you know when it's gonna come and you can just be ready to click it before it hits the fish. Again, you do get Vert and Nico before you get Shrapnel, so they might have some kind of chance to shine if you're playing through adventure mode for the first time. Now, there are two other pets that directly make the player money, but they're both a bit weird. They're the first two bonus pets, Brinkley and Nostradamus. Brinkley is very strange because he doesn't make the player a set amount of money. To get money out of Brinkley, you have to feed him. Every third time you feed him, he gives you a star worth 40, every 12 he gives you a diamond worth 200, every 36 he gives you a pearl worth 500, and every 108 he gives you a treasure chest worth 2000. It is possible to get a lot of money out of Brinkley, but personally, I really don't like him. He's the only one of these pets that doesn't just make money on his own. You have to go out of your way to feed him, and that I really don't like. I just don't like having to focus on him so much, so I don't like him much, but you could probably find a use for him. He's not absolutely terrible. Nostradamus technically makes you money over time, but he makes so little that it's just kind of laughable. Every 12 seconds he drops a booger, and if you click on it you get $1. That's it. If you let a guppy eat it, they also turn into a fake Nostradamus, which is just kind of fucked up. When it comes to making money, Nostradamus is just completely pointless. He makes 1% of the money that Shrapnel does over time. However, he's not terrible, and that's because of his other ability, the Sneeze of Power. When you get a warning letting you know that an alien is about to attack, there's a chance that Nostradamus will activate the Sneeze of Power and delay it for a couple seconds. This might not seem like much, but it's honestly super useful, especially if you're playing something like challenge mode or time trials, where you can afford to have that downtime in the alien attack where you're not making any money. Nostradamus really seems like he'd be a joke pet, but he's not that bad in fairness. It is worth noting though that since Brinkley and Nostradamus are both bonus pets, you probably won't have them in your first adventure playthrough, because they're expensive. Just for reference, you get 5,000 shells for beating adventure mode, but to get all 4 bonus pets, you need 110,000. So yeah, probably not happening anytime soon. I mentioned them earlier, so let's move on to the 4 pets that help you attack aliens. Now, ignoring the fact that Presto kinda makes a couple of them redundant, let's just look at them in a vacuum. Itchy is the first one you get, and because of that, he's definitely the most basic. He does the lowest damage, but he's very simple. He just swims over to the alien and beats the shit out of them. And he's fine, he's nothing special. Rufus does good damage, but he can't leave the bottom of the tank, which is kind of unfortunate because in tanks 2 and 3, you have very valuable fish that can't leave the bottom of the tank themselves, so ideally, you don't want to lure aliens down there so Rufus can hit them. Stanley is the third bonus pet, and he's a bit strange. His damage isn't great because he shoots balls at the aliens. The balls do good individual damage, but his rate of fire is quite low. However, one thing that Stanley has going for him is that he's the only one of the 4 offensive pets that attacks the projectiles that 2 of the aliens send out. Now, to be fair, only 2 aliens use projectile attacks, but it's really nice that Stanley can destroy them, because they're really fucking annoying, honestly. Out of the 4, Gash is definitely the best. He has by a long shot the best damage out of the 4, and the only real downside is that he'll occasionally eat one of your guppies. This is really not much of an issue at all. Guppies are very, very disposable, and even if you don't want to deal with that, you can just transform Presto into him when there's gonna be an alien attack, and then after the alien's killed, you can just transform him back real quick. Also, since I've talked about the other 3, I might as well talk about the last bonus pet, Walter. I don't really know when else to bring him up, because the issue with Walter is that he's actually really, really good. He's one of the best pets in the game, and that's really fucking annoying, because you can't actually buy him until you've bought the other 3 bonus pets, who are all significantly worse. Walter's ability is that when you click on him, he punches whatever's in front of him. If he punches a fish, it'll force them to drop money, and if you punch a pet, it can potentially activate one of their abilities, such as forcing Shrapnel to drop a bomb you can click on, or forcing Amp to activate his lightning ability. Walter is really, really important in speedruns, and even outside of that, he's one of the best pets in the game. His only real downside is that after punching 5 times, he goes to sleep for 10 seconds, but considering how valuable his ability is, I don't think it's that big of a deal. Zorf is interesting because he's actually got some pretty good application when it comes to speedrunning, but from a casual perspective, you often see people call him one of the worst pets in the game. All Zorf does is help you feed your fish, which doesn't sound that useful. I mean, all you gotta do is click on the screen and spend $5 to do that yourself. However, what's notable about Zorf is that he spits out the level 2 upgraded food. Now, a notable complaint is that, why doesn't he spit out the level 3 upgraded food? But this actually kind of works in his favor, especially if you're trying to do things as fast as possible. The main upside to the level 3 food is that it stops fish from going hungry for significantly longer. However, if you're trying to grow your fish as fast as possible, this is actually a bad thing, because you want the fish to go hungry again, so you can feed them again, so they can grow faster. Zorf's big issue is that he's only useful at the beginning of a game, when you really need to get fish grown as fast as possible. Once you've done that, Zorf is kind of pointless, and it means that you'd never actually really pick Zorf. You'd just pick Presto, turn Presto into Zorf for the beginning of the game, and then, once he's not useful anymore, you just transform him into some other pet. Having Zorf around for the whole game just is not worth it at all, and I see where he gets his bad reputation from, especially among casual players. Next up, we're going to talk about one of the 2 pets that I would honestly consider near useless, and that's Wadsworth. All Wadsworth does is protect small and medium guppies in his mouth whenever an alien attacks. When they're in his mouth, they're completely invincible, but I really don't think this helps whatsoever. Guppies are very, very disposable, especially small and medium ones. Now, you could make the argument that Wadsworth is good for new players who might struggle with keeping the aliens away. However, I would disagree, because Gumbo exists. In my opinion, Gumbo is just objectively better than Wadsworth. Gumbo lures all guppies and breeders away from the alien while they're attacking. Granted, they're not invincible like Wadsworth makes the guppies, but protecting all guppies and breeders is infinitely more important. Now, I don't think Gumbo is that great, but you could maybe make a case for him in, like, Tank 2, because he lures star guppies away from aliens. Star guppies are integral to the win condition of Tank 2, because they drop stars which are eaten by the star catchers, and they are your main way of making money in Tank 2. I don't think Gumbo is very good, but he's miles better than Wadsworth. Personally, I would never pick Wadsworth in pretty much any situation, and I think he's one of the 2 near useless pets in the game, alongside the pet that I'm going to talk about last. The last pet we're going to talk about is the pet that I think most people would consider the single worst pet in Insaniquarium, and that's Rhubarb. I think even the developers knew how bad Rhubarb was, because his unlockable story literally talks about how he's the worst pet in the game, but he just doesn't give a fuck. All Rhubarb does is pinch at your fish and keep them away from the bottom of the tank. Now, your fish going to the bottom of the tank can be kind of annoying, because if they're at the bottom of the tank and they drop money, you don't have that big of a window to click on the money. However, you can just, look at your fish and see that they're at the bottom and be ready to click any money they drop. Like, it's not that big of an issue at all, and dedicating a whole pet to solving it just... it's not worth it at all, in my opinion. Also, one funny thing about Rhubarb is that you unlock him for beating Tank 3, but actually using him in Tank 3 is probably the worst idea ever. See, the win condition of Tank 3 is getting guppy crunchers, feeding them guppies by luring the guppies to the bottom of the tank, collecting the beetles that they spit out, and then, once you have enough money, buying beetle munchers, which eat the beetles and drop very valuable pearls. However, if you use Rhubarb in Tank 3, then the guppies you need to lure down to the bottom of the tank to feed the guppy crunchers will be scared away by Rhubarb. So if you're looking to play potentially the most frustrating game of Insaniquarium ever, then that might be right up your alley. So there you have it. That's just a pretty brief look at some of the weaker pets in the best game of all time. If you haven't tried Insaniquarium, I really recommend it. I think it's a really nice little game. Although unfortunately, it's a 20-year-old PC game with a very wonky 15-year-old Steam port, so you might run into a couple troubles, especially running this game in full screen. That's a bit of a bitch, but listen, if you get the chance, I highly recommend this game. It was a massive part of my childhood, and even now I have a massive soft spot for it, so give it a shot. It's cool. It's really, really cool. I just wanted an excuse to talk about it, and I figured April Fools would be a good one, so there you go, have a good one.